Who really lives in a Handmaid's Tale society? Pro-lifers or the Kardashians? You may have seen that Khloe Kardashian recently had her second baby through surrogacy. And in the latest episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, she talks about that experience and how it wasn't what she expected it to be.
Do you feel less connected?
Mm-hmm. So mine, it's really the weirdest thing. I felt really guilty that like this woman just had my baby and I take the baby and then I go to another room and you're sort of separated. Like I felt it's such a transactional experience because it's not about him.
There's a few things wrong with this whole scenario. And the first is that this is the problem with surrogacy, is it promises this perfect scenario. You get to have your cake and eat it too. You don't have to go through pregnancy. You don't have to gain weight. You don't have to be sick in the morning. You don't have to deliver a baby. Somebody else does all that work for you. If you give them enough money, they do the hard work, and then you are just delivered a perfectly healthy baby. The reality is that it's a lot more complicated than that. There are a lot more feelings involved. It's a lot more traumatic. And I find it incredibly ironic because what is the pro-life movement labeled as constantly? A Handmaid's Tale society, that we are using women as incubators, that we are evil, that we just use and abuse women, and all we see them is child bearers and nothing more. And yet, when a celebrity does it, what happens? It's praised. You used a woman as an incubator? Congratulations. You gave her enough money to do the work for you, and now you get a baby. How wonderful is that? And yet, Khloe Kardashian is not satisfied. There's something about it that feels wrong. She said she felt guilty. It felt transactional because that's exactly what it is. You are essentially paying somebody to have a baby for you, and then you take that baby away from everything that it has known for the last 9 months. The sound of their mother's voice, the smell, the touch. Babies are connected to the people that they grow inside of. And then that baby is ripped away from their birth mom, brought into a separate room, and put in the hands of a stranger. It's unnatural, it's unfair, and it is not what we should be doing. But I want to clarify. I'm not saying the reason surrogacy is wrong is because she doesn't feel connected to her child. That's not it, because that may be the case in a lot of circumstances. Whether you adopt, whether you have postpartum depression, there are a lot of reasons why a mother may not feel connected to her baby, and that's okay. It takes time. It can be difficult to bond, to build that connection. The reason it is different is because in the case of an adoption, the reason a baby is, being taken away from the birth mom is because the birth mom isn't able to parent that child. And so it is a sacrifice of love to give birth to this baby, to place them for adoption, to try to give them all that they can, even though they may not be able to parent their child. And in those instances, the birth mom should be honored and respected and supported. And so the reason surrogacy and adoption are so different is because one is a sacrifice of love, and the other is a vanity of self, of I want a baby, I don't want to do the work. I have money, and so I'm going to have somebody else do the work for me, versus I am unable to care for this child. I want them to have the best life possible, and I want to place them for adoption so that they are able to live, survive, and thrive. That is the difference. The other issue with surrogacy that no one talks about is how traumatic it is for the birth mothers. And I've been doing research, and I stumbled upon this woman named Jennifer Lal, who is the founder and president of the Center for Bioethics and Culture. And she speaks about surrogacy, the dangers of it, the trauma of it, and why it is not okay. And this is something that she says. If you want to be a kidney donor, we say that's wonderful, but you are not allowed to be paid, because what happens when commerce enters is people will make decisions that are not in the best interest for themselves. Women are not breeders. Children are not products and commodities. Women are not easy bake ovens baking cupcakes for nice other people. That is what surrogacy essentially becomes. And it's traumatic for women. And there are thousands of surrogates who come forward to say, hey, I didn't know what this situation was going to be like. I didn't realize how difficult it was going to be for me. I didn't realize how traumatic it would be for that baby to be taken away from me after I just carried it for 9 months. It is inherently unnatural. It's also a very privileged view. Not very many people would be able to afford a surrogate. And then to think that you're going to have this perfect scenario without any issues, that you're going to walk into that room and that baby is just going to feel like you've been carrying it for the last 9 months. It is a privileged view. Surrogacy is a privilege. And these rich celebrities utilize it as a way to have children and not necessarily go through the effort or work. It's also very sad watching this video of her going into this room because she's alone, because the person she decided to have a baby with cheated on her. And so now she is experiencing this by herself. And I'm sure that adds to the hurt and the expectation of what she was hoping it would be like, and then being there and feeling unfulfilled by this circumstance. But she also adds one other thing that I wanted to talk about.
I wish someone was honest about surrogacy and the difference of it, but it doesn't mean it's bad or good. It's still great. It's just very different.
It's almost like she could have talked to her sister that has had several children through surrogacy, that maybe she could have been honest with her about the circumstance. And I find it interesting that she says, well, it doesn't mean it's bad, right? We see this all the time. Somebody has a traumatic experience, but they feel the need to say, well, other people, it's fine for them. It just was wrong for me. Well, maybe it's just wrong. Maybe more people feel like this than they're willing to admit, but because of the culture that we live in, we're not allowed to say anything negative against anyone's experience. When they do this, what they're trying to do is protect others. But what they're really doing is allowing others to suffer by not being honest and speaking up. So I agree. We should be more honest about surrogacy. And in the same way, I think we should be more honest about abortion. I don't think that people should be scared to speak up about their experience because they don't want to give something a bad name, whether that is surrogacy or abortion. It hurts. It is traumatic. And those things absolutely should be talked about and also put into question. Is this a morally good thing? No. Is it morally right to artificially create a human life? No. Is it our job as human beings to be completely in control of the creation of a new human being? No, we're not God, and we shouldn't be playing God. And that is why these situations become so sticky and uncomfortable, is because we are stepping over the boundary that the Lord has created for us. And the last thing I'd like to add is to address the very obvious elephant in the room, and that is, why didn't she adopt? Why didn't she take in children who are in the foster care system? Because that burden is so heavily put on pro-lifers that anytime we say we want to save a child from abortion, they say, well, wait. What about the people that already exist? What about the children that are already on this world? Well, first of all, preborn children are already in existence. They are already in this world. You may not be able to see them with your eyes, but they do exist. And so it's actually incredibly different to save a child from abortion who already exists and then artificially create a human being because you want a perfect baby without any trauma, without any sticky situation of having to deal with a birth mom or maybe the difficulty that comes with adopting. And so again, it is incredibly privileged for Khloe Kardashian to artificially create a human being and not decide to care for children that are already on this world. So again, I have to ask the question, why is that burden put so heavily on pro-lifers and not the rich celebrities that create babies so that they don't have to get pregnant?